for anyone who is watching the recording. Welcome to Living with Chronic Pain, Leveling the Playing Field with myself and Sue Carney, and a number of guests. And as we move forward in our hour to 90 minutes together today, there will hopefully be more people logging on. And if not, you'll be watching this all on the recording. But we have David with us, and we have Janet Birch Perry. So, without further ado, let's crack on. We actually have plenty of material to keep us going because we did the little Q&A beforehand in the sign up box. That was the purpose of that, just in case no one turned up. Although I'm sure we could talk about this for a long time. So, welcome, Sue. And would you just like to kind of introduce yourself and tell us about your backstory? Because not everyone will have seen the full backstory. And I know you put a couple of videos up, and also, of course, we had the podcast. So, do you want to just introduce yourself, and I'll do a little introduction of myself, and then we'll hopefully a few more people will be here by then as well.
Sure. So I'm Sue Carney, and I've lived a lot longer than I ever planned to. As a young person, I was enthusiastic. I was enthusiastic about oblivion, and I chased it hard for many years. And in that time, I was heedless of my own safety and that of others in a big way. I've had many motor vehicle accidents, some of which were caused by me being loaded or hungover. I've fallen out of a tree on LSD. I've fallen downstairs. I have put my body through a lot. And by the time I realized that old age was going to be available to me, much older than I planned to be. I thought I'd be dead by 30. Now I get to live with the gifts of my heedless, reckless life. And some of them manifest as physical pain in my body. Plus my work, I have a lot of repetitive strain. Besides the injuries, I have a lot of repetitive strain injuries. I'm on computers a lot. And then because I think I'm nuts, I also knit. When I'm not on a computer, I knit. So I have a lot of stuff in my upper body that requires, invites me to notice it a lot. Doesn't require anything. I can try and ignore it, or I can try and meet it where it's at. And those two extremes and everything in the middle is part of what we're going to be talking about today. So thanks for inviting me to this conversation, Damien.
Well, thank you for being here. And this obviously came off the back of our conversation originally around the podcast. And living with chronic pain. You and I both are people that share the principles, the three principles, and there will be definitely people certainly on the recording that won't know what the three principles are. For anyone who doesn't know who I am, I've written a couple of books on the three principles. My own story is 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with OCD, depression, stress, and anxiety, and put through CBT and psychotherapy and on some medication, none of which worked. And in a very hungover state myself, came across something called the Three Principles, kind of introduced by Sydney Banks, who's no longer with us, who basically said that you are creating your entire experience through your own thinking, and that's all kind of going on within you. And of course, I spent the rest of my life looking out there for the answers. It kind of stopped me in my tracks, especially as I had a hangover and I wasn't really listening properly. I think if I had been, I would have been trying to analyse the hell out of it. And as a result, my life got better. I didn't trust my thinking so much because I knew where it was coming from. And I wasn't actually nuts. I thought, I'd been told I was nuts, but I wasn't. I kind of reconnected to my own wisdom, my own guidance, my own inner guidance, and my journey is kind of continue from there. And actually, at the moment, I'm probably helping more people with suicidal thoughts than anything else. So this is coming up a lot at the moment. Suicide, it comes up every single day. In fact, I speak to either a client or a friend of a client who talks about suicide every day, and I'm helping more and more people in that regard. Because suicide is actually a pretty permanent solution to a temporary problem. So we're going to kind of like talk around a lot of subjects today, but let's start with what are your okay? So mindfulness is a really big topic at the moment. Right? Mindfulness is a really big topic at the moment. Mindfulness and meditation. Where does that fit in to your understanding and how you navigate life?
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to back up a little bit and say that my relationship to my body and my physical circumstances really changed when I was introduced to the three principles some 3 or so years ago. Because it became really clear to me that when I was engaged in something or interested in something, I wasn't worrying about or complaining about or moaning about the state of my body and the pain that I was in. And then when I would turn my attention away from the thing that had engaged me and entertained me, then it was almost as if I would consciously resume complaining or moaning about the pain. So I got to see that it was my thinking and my personality and my ego that was attaching to and inflaming my thoughts about the level of inflammation in my body. So mindfulness, my approach to mindfulness has really changed in that often now when I'm having some spasmodic, breathtaking level of pain in my body, I will just sit with it. I will just breathe with it. This is a new kind of mindfulness. It's a new approach to mindfulness for me. I will just kind of be with what's present. And in that quiet moment, I often will just kind of ask my body, what do you need? What do you need? You know, and I'll gently move or I'll more vigorously move depending on what feels right. And whatever the time span that it is, and that's always variable, the intensity does pass. The intensity always passes. Eventually, someday it won't, and I won't survive something, and I will die. But until that time, I get to be mindfully present in the moment. I don't no longer think that a dedicated meditation practice is the answer. I'm warming up as I do when I speak, so I'm peeling off a layer here. I don't think that meditation is an answer, and I think meditation is really useful, but I don't think it is. I don't think a certain regimen of techniques is the way in or the way out of dealing with pain anymore.
And why is that?
Because it just becomes something to check off on a to-do list. I don't know, something happened. I have always been a big practices person, and then since I've been engaging with the three principles, I find that my relationship to my practices is a little bit more freewheeling. I'm not as rigid about it anymore, and the rigidity, I don't feel like the rigidity helps at all. I feel like the rigidity gets in the way of my being present, and when I feel like I can be present, I have more ease. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of with that one of the areas where we're taking the principles into with regard to the suicide is veterinary practices. So vets, not war veterans, but vets, animals vets. And one of the reasons that they have a very high suicide rate is because they have a lot of perceived stress and strain. Perceived. So they've got a lot of things going on. They've got 20 things to keep in their head at one time. They've got pressure, self-created pressure, but pressure that it seems like it's coming from out there. And there's lots and lots of reasons why suicide rates are so high. They've got access to the means to do it properly. They're surrounded by death every day. Euthanasia. They actually train to make animals well, and yet sort of 90% of their time they're putting them down. And yeah, they've got there's plenty of stuff going on there. Giving them something else to do. So mindfulness is actually the only thing it's like a band-aid on a hemorrhage. Mindfulness is being introduced to help them with dealing with stress. But it's another thing to put on their list of things to do. It's another to do, and they've got to do's coming out of their ears. It's like, I've got enough, I can't remember another to do. Don't give me another to do, give me a to don't.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing with meditation also, because in meditation, how many times have I signed up? Don't ask me to count. How many times have I signed up for a program that if you do this meditation, you will not be in pain. You will transcend your pain. You will have ease and harmony in your life. So then when that doesn't work, I feel like I'm doing it. I see you, Janet. I see you nodding. It makes me feel like I've done something wrong, which only makes it worse. So am I doing my to-do list right? And if I'm doing it right, then why am I still in pain? I must be doing it wrong. And that is a spiraling cycle of crap.
Mm. And actually, again, there's a real kind of link up there, because one of the biggest reasons why people do commit suicide is because they feel worthless. And getting into that spiral of I'm not good enough, or I can't do it, someone else is doing it, I can't do it. Yeah, it's that. And so I would say that if you're pointing people in that direction, which is like, yeah, just do this thing and it's going to be okay. It's like telling someone who's homeless, it's like, well, if you just if you just didn't do that stuff, you wouldn't be where you are. It's not going to help them. Yeah, and actually being in that position of not blaming, but it's like, they're saying that it's a process thing is I don't think very helpful. So I'm just going to get a gallery view and see if I can. Who's that? Someone's just joined on there. I'm just going to make sure you're muted from the number. So what is different about the principles?
Everything. What's different about the principles for me is that I feel like I have regained agency over my relationship to what is. And so it's really kind of interesting to me as a Three Principles student that I've now really begun to understand that my circumstances, whatever they are, that's outside of me. And if I am waiting for my circumstances to change for me to be okay, that's a fruitless place to hang out. And it's a fruitless and frustrating place to hang out, because circumstances just keep coming. Life is full of circumstances, whether it be chronic pain in an aging body, or financial stuff, or recurring health, or autoimmune diseases, or whatever. Circumstances are always coming, and my relationship to them, I can bring it in. I can bring it in, and I can find that my inner sense of being grounded and at peace and at purpose in life can continue fairly steadily despite the changes in my circumstances. And that's all three principles to me. There are two main parts that convinced me right away that this was a really useful paradigm. And one is that thing about living from the inside out rather than from the outside in, waiting for circumstances to improve. And the other is that my thinking about my circumstances, my thinking about my thinking, and it is kind of like me throwing napalm on a simmering fire and turning it into a conflagration. Mm-hmm. When I can bring it back in to me and let the thinking pass like a raindrop or a butterfly, then I don't have to, then I'm not making things worse. Hi, Terry. So I think we forgot to tell people that if you have something you want to say, there's a way to raise your hand. If you are on a computer, you can scroll down to where it says participants, and then you can open up the participants panel, and next to your name, you can click the raise hand button. I think I said that right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I completely forgot that. There was only 4 of us on the call at the beginning. That's why.
That's right. But now we're growing, and I want everybody to be invited. Yes.
Yeah, we'd like you to get involved. Actually, obviously you've all filled in the questionnaire anyway, but it would be nice to get you guys involved as well. So, there was a lot of different. We had a lot of people sign up for this call. There's 18 people in total, and there's a lot of different ways of people dealing with their chronic pain on a day-to-day basis. How does because you take care of yourself. You take care of yourself. You take care of the physical. For someone someone who maybe sort of understands the principles would say, well, if you're creating all of it anyway, it's all thought. What has the improved physical environment got to do with this? I've got my own thoughts on this, but
yeah, so that's where expressions like leveling the playing field come up for me. It's I'm not trying to outwit my physical condition. I'm not trying to beat it or cure it, but I am sufficiently motivated by the pleasure and improvement I feel in my body every time I practice Tai Chi or do this thing that I do for increasing the dilation in my blood vessels so that my blood pressure doesn't skyrocket, or rubbing healing salves on my feet when they've gone completely numb. There is a kind of way for me, self-love is not like really accessible for me all the time, but when I put my hands on myself or make something with my own hands that's going to increase the ease in my body, there's some kind of connection to my own sense of well-being that gets enhanced. I don't know how to articulate it any better than that just now, but that's what comes up for me. What's your thinking on it, Damien?
Well, I always remember this this occasion when I play. Well, I don't play squash at the moment because I've actually got a bit of an injury at the moment. But I play at a sort of fairly decent standard, and so Division 2 is kind of like the one below the pros. So, and I was playing in a week where I was playing on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So 4 team games in a row. And I had a particularly bad night with the kids on the Sunday, and I had really little sleep. And I was like really not, you know when you like got that matchsticks holding your eyelids up kind of feeling. And I went and I played on the Monday evening, and I got absolutely taken apart by someone that I would usually beat. And I was due to play on the Tuesday, but both kids were ill again. They both had this vomiting bug. So by the Tuesday morning, I probably had about 2 hours sleep in 48 hours. And bearing in mind what had happened the night before with, getting completely hammered, I just thought, do you know what? It's almost like no point in me even showing up tonight because I'm going to get absolutely taken apart again. So my routine of looking after, of like feeding myself the right foods at the right time during the day to get optimum energy, etc. I'd have like some carbs at the right time, about sort of 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I've had a lot of water, a lot of salt, isolytes loading up. Just went out the window. I just ate crap all day, right? And I turned up at the court in the evening and just said to the guys, look, this is what's happened. I'm absolutely exhausted. I basically gave up. And I went on court and I played the best squash I've ever played in my life.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
And I took this guy apart that I would usually have been beaten by. And what that showed me was, even though I thought that it had everything to do with the physical side of it, it actually was completely this, totally and utterly this. And because I'd actually completely let go of anything, I wasn't attached to it in any way, I freed myself completely. And it was mind-blowing. It was like, whoa. So when I think about like the physical side, I like to say it's creating the environment, but actually it's not. It doesn't matter because it's all actually really happening up here. You can be in the worst state possible and still be in heaven up here or hell. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. So that's kind of my bit for that.
Well, for me too, I did some massively strict food stuff for years. I did strict autoimmune paleo. If anyone on this call has done that, that is hard stuff. For over 2 years, I turned around. I stabilized some autoimmune conditions that way. And then when I, a year or so later, checked in with that doctor who started me with it and said, so what do I eat now? Things are kind of stable. He said, eat what makes you feel good and don't eat what doesn't, which was scary shit for me because now it's like, not only am I left to my own devices, but I get to be responsible for the results. So, but I have to say for me that I'm a pleasure seeker. If something feels good, I will do it again and again and again. And so when things that I do put in my body and on my body make me feel good, that's an incentive for me to repeat I guess it's it's the addict in me chasing the pleasure feeling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's perfectly okay. Mm-hmm. For me,
David.
Perfectly okay.
David, I'm just going to unmute you. Go for it. Raise your hand.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm appreciating this topic and both your sharing from a 3 principle and your personal perspective. A couple of things that have touched me so far. Well, first around mindfulness, and also Sue, you're kind of talking about relating to the pain first initially by seeing how you were feeding it with your own thinking, kind of reacting to it, and then if you felt better when you let that go. That to me, or you could put your attention in another direction. To me, I do that a lot. I mean, I'm very aware of that, and I sort of consciously put my attention elsewhere, off my body, onto whatever makes sense in the moment. Not that it's a conscious practice per se, but more that when I kind of just relax into the moment and see what makes sense, often makes sense to me is to get my attention out onto my work or onto talking to somebody or whatever I'm doing, or maybe take a break and watch some Netflix or something. And so that's actually a really common strategy for me, or not strategy, something that tends to happen for me when I check in as to what makes sense. On the other hand, what you also described, Sue, about kind of when the pain came up for you, kind of letting yourself be with it, just allow it and be present with it. Allow it. Maybe you said breathe, I'm not sure. That one is much, much less common for me to feel like it makes sense for me because, well, for one thing, like to make it simple, when I do that, put my attention on my body, it tends to make it more intense. The kind of flavor of pain that I experience is very much connected with muscle tension, generally like in my torso, which is also quite related to anxiety and stress. And somehow just putting my attention on my body, it just kind of somehow feeds the loop. Maybe like as you were describing initially, Sue, what's happening to you. And it's still a confusing thing because in terms of mindfulness, this is the mindfulness strategy that I hear. Be with what's happening. You know, be present, allow, come into the moment, be in the now. And a big flavor of mindfulness is actually body awareness. One of the dominant meditations is watch your breath, notice your body sensations. So I tend to have a fair amount of thinking about this and questions and really open to learning, to seeing deeper into my own not knowing around this stuff.
At the risk of sounding like I'm pushing a technique, which I am not, this is a new occurrence for me. This just kind of happened. It wasn't something I thought to do. It was just a moment of, I think I was making my bed and some back spasm came, a breathtaking back spasm. And I was near the window and I just found myself I plunked myself down on the edge of the bed and looked outside the window and just got quiet. So it wasn't so much about being with my body and its symptoms as just so much as being with the moment, you know, just breathing into the moment. And the question arose in me without planning, okay, body, what do you need right now? You know, which is kind of a generous, gentle thing for me to say to my body. And it had never arisen before. And it felt kind of peaceful. So now I kind of have left that, you know, try to leave that door open to return to that place in those moments of gasping for air. I mean, I still have things that I keep handy all the time. I have trigger point balls that I use to bring ease. I soak. I'm a big soaker in hot baths with some dandy things that I throw in there that help ease my muscles, I hope, because I spend a fortune on Epsom salts. You know, and there are some things that just, and again, if it makes me feel better, for bringing some kind of ease and relaxation, then I tend to go back to it. Does that make sense, David?
It does make sense. No, that makes total sense.
But it's not as if I'm setting out now every day to, like, at 9, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to ask my body what it needs, you know, so maybe I can change the game and have less pain. That's not it at all. It's just kind of, for me, a moment of just being with what is. And, you know, when I think about those mindfulness practices of watch your breath and feel it's like people maybe, who knows, have had experiences like mine and then kind of codified them as a way to share them with others. But maybe that takes away the opportunity to just be there in the moment, more free form. And I think the principles is a big invitation to be more free form with what works for you and less rigid about it. At least for me, that's my take on it. I can make a structure. I heard this in a 12-step meeting a million years ago. Give me a rut and I'll decorate it. You know, I can make a routine and a habit out of anything. And the helpful stuff and the not so helpful stuff. And so, yeah, I lost my
Great
train of
stuff.
thought.
What's your view on medication, Sue?
I have a guarded love for the medications that I use in my life as a recovering addict myself. 27 years sobriety this month. I returned to using medications for pain last year, 2 years ago now almost, and now use cannabis and some opioid medication on a daily basis. And I really appreciate the relief that it gives me. I pay a price for it, I think, especially with the oxycodone that I take in the evenings, because it's an addictive depressive drug. So I have things that I do to offset that. But the relief that I get in my body when I take it is a huge blessing. And so I am mindful and careful and respectful and grateful. I'm really grateful to live in a place where I can use cannabis. I take it in capsules raw in the morning. I take it in tinctures during the day. I vape a couple of times a day. And I take more tinctures at night before I go to bed. And I make some of my own. I make topicals from it and my own tinctures. And it's remarkably helpful. It's my relationship to cannabis it's an entirely different thing than it was when I was getting stoned around the clock for 25 years.
Because I've got a strange, kind of view on this. I mean, at the back of Do Nothing, I wrote about Ram Dass meeting someone that actually took a poison. I had an experience not that long ago where I took something which I thought was something else, and had the effect of the thing that I thought it was good I was taking. Later on, found out that I'd actually taken something completely different that actually had the opposite effect. But because I thought the thing I was taking was going to give me the effect that it was supposed to, it did. And yet I had taken almost like the opposite.
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. I took the wrong one. Well, how did that happen then? Because I thought it was working. I took it, I thought it was working, it worked. But actually the drug itself was the opposite of that. I mean, basically it wasn't meant to do the thing that it was doing. And it was like, whoa, that's just blown me away. Just because I believed that I was taking it, the effects happened as I expected. Which is obviously the placebo. Placebo for any blind trials now, they have to reach the 50% or whatever the mark is for the placebo. It's like 38% placebo effect to even get over the start post. So it just blows me away when things like that happen, and I see it a lot. They did a big study with the British cycling team on performance enhancers, and if they told them it was performance enhancing, guess what? It enhanced their performance. It was all sugar pills. It just blows me away every time I see. Again, it goes back to this all the time. It's like if you think you're taking an opioid, your body will respond as if you're taking an opioid. Well, guess what? That means you don't have to take the opioid. Because we naturally do that. We actually, we can naturally create serotonin and dopamine and all the things. This is why, when Victoria gave birth to Micah without any painkillers, or in fact, actually, she gave birth to Annie Rose without any painkillers or a birthing pool, because they didn't have anything ready. It was in the hospital, and she literally breathed her own serotonin and dopamine into her body, and was just like, we call it surges, not pain. The nurses are calling it pain. So how are you dealing with the pain? And she's like, can you just not call it that, please? Because it's surges, it's nature doing its thing. Right? If I think of it as pain, guess what? It's going to be painful. If I don't think of it as pain, if I think of it as natural, I can create my own dopamine, serotonin. Yeah, it's like take care of itself.
Very moon to everyone. I've had that experience as well with essential oils. Damien, I attributed it to Pavlov's effect because I had used the essential oil and had the same results so many times that I was able to experience the results simply by thinking about applying the oil.
That's amazing. Terry, how did you do that? Even you don't know. That's not your voice though, is it?
I'm unmuting myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My apologies. I use Zoom at least once a week, several times a week, most weeks. And I typed a message in here to the group. And much to my surprise, somebody read my message out loud in the middle of somebody else's sentence. My apologies. I didn't expect that was going to happen. But I did want to chime in and just share my experience with that, which is I use a lot of essential oils, and that I had this, Pavlov's effect where, you ring the bell and the dog salivates because it's about to get fed. And it just becomes this, as soon as you hear the bell, then it's time to eat. And that happens over time. And because I had used this essential oil blend for many, many, many times, I was able to just think about applying the blend, even when a situation where I didn't have it. And I had the effect of it. And I can still do that sometimes where I put it on or I don't put it on. I just think about it. And it's almost like, and I attributed it to the fact that like essential oils are vibrational medicine, and they're teaching my body the vibration to resonate with that, so that when I didn't put it on, I just thought about putting it on. After having done it many times, my body had learned the experience of it, I think, so that I was able to just experience it even without using it, actually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. My chronic pain doctor does the same. He said to use peppermint, essential oil peppermint when I take the pain meds, so that because I don't want to take them all day long, so I take them only in the later part of the day. He said to use peppermint oil on the tip of my nose to connect to the relief that the pain meds give me. So it's very similar. Yeah.
So that's kind of associating two things together,
right?
And using one of them but not the other.
And there's some neuroscience thing about peppermint oil especially that I can find again for you, Terry, if you want to know about that. But that's why he recommends that.
I'm actually a certified clinical aromatherapist, so I know about essential oils. And my thought would be that you would use the essential oil and not use the med, and vice versa, because the essential oil doesn't have any side effects, whereas the medication does. But that's not what he's suggesting, huh?
He's suggesting that I can use the essential oil in addition to the small amount of the medication that I'm willing to take. Yeah, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be complementary. Yeah. And I mean, there are many, many reasons I love the essential oils too, but I think part of, I don't know, and maybe I'm off on this, but what I think is that the body has receptor sites for chemicals, and the body sends signals. Candace Pert talks about this in Molecules of Emotion, and how the body communicates with itself and cells communicate with each other, and that those signals can get interrupted or covered over with medications or other petrochemicals, toxins in our environment, or pesticides from our food, or whatever it might be. God knows, chemtrails, so if those receptor sites get covered over, then there can't be that communication. And I wonder if that has to do with why pain becomes chronic. And because I've seen when I use like oregano essential oil, you clean off those receptor sites, then the cells can communicate with each other again, so that, I don't know, detoxification might be a big part of why something like that works. That, that especially with essential oils, they do detoxify the body, and some of them, the ones that are high in phenol content, can actually clean off those receptor sites, so there's more communication happening. So I don't know, what do you think about that idea? I don't know, but I am not a technician, so I don't want to go too far down that road. But I know that that aligns very much with what they say about the cannabinoid system in the body, and
Which
how
is
we have all these receptors, and how that can normalize and even out the pain receptor responses in the body by using cannabis, especially the high CBD, non-psychoactive kind.
Mhm,
I did do. I wrote an article recently on depression, and one of the conclusions that I came to, bearing in mind that if you go to Mind, if you go to their actual site, their actual website, they state on the front page that chemical imbalance has nothing to do with depression, which is really, really strange thing to put on Mind. Do you know what I mean? Even all the data kind of says that that's not true. However, so they're kind of a step behind in this to start with. But what I kind of found by doing my research is that there are a number of apparent triggers for depression, and I say apparent because there is no one thing. Well, there's one delivery system, right? So thought in whatever format is what tips it out of balance. Whether that's the chemical imbalance, whether that's a hormone imbalance, whether that's some sort of psychosis, whatever. And it's the thought about something is what does it. So for instance, there'll be people that say death of someone or some sort of chronic pain led to my depression. Well, actually, no, it didn't. The thing that led to the depression is the consistent thought, negative thinking, which turns off genes, creates the chemical imbalance. It's the thought that carves out the channels for the permanent, or not the permanent, but the seemingly permanent tip to take place. And so, it can be alcohol or drugs. Now, it still has to happen via thought. But what I talked about is again, leveling the playing field, is if you know that it can be one of many things that can lead to it, and something, let's say, is going on in your life. Let's say, your mother's died and your father died within 2 weeks of that happening. This happened to a client of mine. And then they lost a brother, all within the space of a few weeks. And they were suffering through chronic pain as well. And it would be really, really crazy at that moment to go, well, I'm not helping with the odds here if I start turning to alcohol and drugs. Right? It's not going to help. Now, again, the delivery system for telling you that that's not going to help is thought. It's the messenger in all of this. It's the one thing that connects all of this. It delivers insight, and it delivers the negative and the positive and all of that. And this is why I like to, and this is what my article did, it pointed people back to, well, what is the one thing that is actually connecting it? It's thought. It's thought that it's the delivery system here. And it's the same here. It's like whether it's placebo or the medicine, or there is the chemical still has to do something in the brain. If it's the alcohol, that it changes the nerve endings, whatever, if it's the uppers, the downers, or if it, modafinil or any of those nootropics that change your thinking state. It's all about the chemical imbalance, or the chemical balance in the brain, but it's still delivered by thought. Thought is it's the one consistent thing amongst all of this. And that's what I think, as we start to point in that direction and start to do the research on thought, that's really what's going to start making a difference here. Looking at things like placebo and how people can ingest drugs that should kill them and it doesn't. How's that possible?
Well, I'm really curious about that too, because I think the more I learn about the three principles, I think that there's, my experience of pain is going to be related to thought as well. Mm-hmm. I haven't figured it out, are you hearing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
That was,
is there something?
No, that was the voice thing on my computer. Sorry about that. But I haven't resolved that or solved it or figured it out. But I do know that that's part of the reason why I'm very ginger with the amount of the medications I want, because I want to be present to this understanding. I want to be present to the understanding. I want to be present to what is it in my life, is what level, what is, not that I think I'm going to solve it or resolve it, but that there is an awareness of being present. I just really feel like I'm called to be present to this as much as possible. And so I am, one of my 3 principles teachers said, yeah, you'll take those medications as long as they're useful to you, and then you'll stop when they're not. And so I am highly motivated to reduce the amount of medication I take. I'm taking less than the doctor suggested, because I want to be present for this adventure. I want to be present. I want to invite my awareness to be just really open to possibility here. And I don't know what's possible, but I do think that it's not just cut and dried, that I am stuck with this for the rest of my life and I'm going to be hurting and it's going to get worse. I don't think I have to be predicting anything. I think that all I want to predict is how I'm going to be in this moment.
Mm-hmm. I watched a TED Talk this morning, and the lady said the odds of us being alive in this body, in your body right now, are 400 trillion to 1.
Wow.
Which I thought was quite a cool kind of number, because it's like, well, really, the odds of actually being alive in this moment, 400 trillion to 1. For it all to work out and not to have been eaten by lions or killed by the plague and all this sort of stuff, and to be the one that got through, because when that sperm was racing, it had a lot of people that it was racing against, and you made it, and you were the front. You've won a race in your life. You did come first, unless you're a twin. So, and to medicate yourself out of the present moment, knowing that that's true, is really a bit of a shame. To feel that you have to do that. But I think we're starting to become more aware of that. I think now, we're starting to have a realization about our own humanity and what that means. And what I love personally about the principles is it levels the playing field, because it does actually say, look, everyone's using the same experience here. A lot of people that I speak to don't even realize that they're creating this thing called thought, and that's driving everything they do. Everything, subconsciously or consciously, it's driving everything. It's running the whole show, and they don't even know that. Okay, let's look at some more of the questions that came up here. This one was really quite intriguing, because I didn't even know this. I didn't even know this was the case. I need to just kind of scroll back to see who actually wrote this, though. If there's something I don't already know about that is natural and not multi-level marketing for chronic pain, you see, as soon as I saw that, I was like, really? Do people do that?
Oh, Brenda's not here. Yeah. Yeah.
What would that be? I mean, God, are there people out there doing MLM on chronic pain?
I think there's MLM for everything. Wow. But yeah, so I'd like to hear from Janet and Nan. Am I saying your name right? I'd like to hear from everybody too, because Damien and I were thinking about, well, maybe we'll end up doing some kind of a ongoing course or something for this. And if there was something where you could have a recurring opportunity to get support for yourself and your moving through your physical challenges in life, what would you want to get out of it? Where would there be an opening to feel more connected and less alone dealing with your physical circumstances? What would be useful?
Who wants to pitch in? Janet and is it Nana? Nanny? How do you pronounce it?
I don't know, because she's muted.
Hold on, let me unmute you for a second. There we go. I'll mute you there. How do you pronounce your name? Nani?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you
now
hear
we
me?
can.
It's Nan.
Hi,
Yeah,
Nan.
Nan.
yeah, it's Nan. Hi, it's Ann with an N at the beginning. And I
Ah,
can't see you. The page has disappeared on me. But anyway, I'm listening. Sorry. What the question is? What do I want to get out of?
out of this, or if there was an ongoing group, what would call to you? What would be useful?
I would love people to talk to check in around my pain. It's interesting listening to you talk about mindfulness. I'm a farmer, so I have to use my body. My body is my tractor every day, and I check in with my pain every day. I've been living with Lyme disease since 1983. It's a sort of a occupational hazard of being a grassland farmer where I live. I do a lot of body work. I do a lot of cannabis. I do a lot of all the things you're talking about. I meditate. It sounds a little bit like the mindfulness stuff that you're suggesting, checking in with it and just breathing through it is very temporary for me. I want it to go away. I want to get off my meds. I have to take diclofenac every day. It's interesting that when I do things like I curl 3 days a week, I was listening about your squash playing, and it's such a joyful thing for me to be with everybody. It's very easy to just make it go away. And then, of course, when I come back to the farm, not unlike the vet, there are a million to-dos and 150 livestock to check in with and all of their needs. So I think that the stress has a lot to do with it. Anyway, I'd love to hear more about the 3 principles. I'd love to see a support group weekly or monthly or something, or just a place to be able to check in with folks, even on a Facebook page.
Have you, out of interest, have you checked out Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey, their work on Lyme disease?
I've not.
Because they do a lot of biohacking stuff, and that's one of the things that they tackled because they both had it, and have done a lot of research. And
they tackled what? I'm sorry.
On Lyme disease,
What?
they couldn't find anything to tackle it, so they went and basically did the research themselves and have come up with some really interesting stuff on that.
Right.
I'll send you the links. I'll find some links.
A lot of stuff out.
Oh, you're frozen. Who are these people who wrote about Lyme? Tim Ferriss, who runs basically the biggest podcast in the world. He's interviewed some pretty cool people. A guy called Dave Asprey, but I'll send the links to everyone in the group anyway. So I'm pretty sure he's done an actual podcast on it, on Lyme disease as well. So Janet, do you want to? You okay to talk? Yeah. Oh, brilliant. There we go. Perfect timing. Hi, Janet. You all right?
Hello.
Hiya.
Can you hear me all okay?
Yeah.
I don't do Zoom very often, so.
You're natural.
I'm here. Well, I know I wrote some things on the registration. I'm not really sure. This is kind of the first time I've talked about what my wife and I are going through. My wife may potentially have what is called lupus anticoagulant disorder. And I recently learned that I may have Hashimoto's for the past 20 years or however long. And I've had so many different ailments over the years. And my wife actually is in her late 30s and has diseases of most, 70, 80-year-olds. Like, she's never really had an explanation of, or even really looked into alternative medicine until we've been together. So she has blood condition and has been on Coumadin since she was 19. Also has a heart problem for the past 3 years. So between the two of us, we've actually, Sue, your story earlier really kind of spoke to me about how you've tried the whole autoimmune paleo diet, and we're actually about to embark on our journey of doing an elimination diet. Is kind of where we're at this moment, because we want to get some answers, and our doctors aren't being very helpful. Trying to get to the place of figuring this out kind of right from the beginning of all the different ailments and issues that we've dealt with over the past, years, decades. Realizing that there may be these underlying reasons for that, and just trying to figure out what all the different pieces that can help with that and helping us live a better life. So when I saw this conference come up in my email reminder from you, Sue, this morning, it really spoke to me, because it's only been in the past 2 weeks that we've been really looking and diving into this whole new world. So it was very timely for me that this was happening. So I want to thank, the energies that be for this to come together. But I think it would be very helpful to, going back to like the feeling more connected piece. I think it would be really useful to maybe have, monthly or quarterly, or however often people are able to really connect, maybe like this format, and maybe also have a Facebook group or some other avenue to connect, have a place that people can connect with each other. I think that would be really helpful, knowing that we're all in this in our own way, but sharing a similar journey.
Great. That's what I was hoping to hear. And I'm going to tell you, Janet, that my autoimmune doctor, for lack of a better word, does work from a distance, and he's really great. So I will conspire with Damien to get that on the links that we'll send out as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, his name is Tom Cowan, and his practice is called Fourfold Healing. And he treats by phone call and email, as well as visits in his office. He's in San Francisco. So he's really good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Just as a show of hands, who actually, I know David knows about the principles. Does everyone else know about the 3 principles? Yes or no? Terry, no? Janet, no? Nan, do you know? Yes or no? Okay, that's interesting.
There we go. No, I can't. I don't know about what you're calling the 3 principles.
Oh, okay. It might just be worth doing a quick kind of guide, really, of what they are.
Sorry for disappearing.
Sorry about that. That's really annoying.
It's annoying me too, and I think it comes from my computer.
Oh, is it? Siri on yours, is it?
I just want it to go away.
Just don't anyone put in the chat like war and peace.
Yeah. Just talk. Sorry. It looks like a call to Apple is on my schedule today. Thank you.
So just as like a brief introduction. I run courses in the principles. I do it for business as much as anyone, actually, because it's just a description of the operating system. I call it the human operating system. And it's very simple. It's just a description of the process, really. And it's very simple. And it's that we have this energy running through us. We have this, you are very different from people in graveyards. Speak to any doctor and they'll tell you, right? When the body dies, something leaves it. They can't explain it. It's like something leaves the body when you die. And call it a soul, whatever. But there's this energy behind life, and it powers us, and it gives us this intelligence that lets us do pretty cool things. But it's everywhere. It's like it's in everything. Now, this intelligence is everywhere. I'm an atheist, but I believe in God. Okay, so I believe in grand organized design. Right? That's my version of God. Grand organized design. There's something obviously more intelligent than me at play behind the scenes, and it's formless, whatever it is. electricity is formless, but it's there. You can see it behind you now. Can't really explain it unless you're an electrician, but it's there. It's something there powering the system. So you have to have that for anything to happen. And then as the human experience really only occurs because you have this thing called thought coming through you, and that thought is brought to life by something called consciousness. Now that is really the principles. It's like you are alive, you think, and you're conscious, and you have consciousness that brings those thoughts to life. And it's really just a very simple description of how the human operating system works. But I guess what really kind of woke me up was that I'd been looking out there for solutions, right? So, I had everything. I had like, the 6-figure income and the £500,000 house and like the wife and 2.5 kids and everything that was supposed to make me happy. And yet I was absolutely miserable because I had everything that was supposed to make me happy, but I was miserable because I was the one creating the misery. And all of a sudden, someone tells me, it's like, well, there's this thing, there's this thing that's happening to everyone. We're all creating our experience from the inside out. It's nothing to do with what's out there. It's actually irrelevant what's out there, right? There's a correlation, but it's not causation, right? It's not, your happiness is not being caused by what's out there. It's not actually even connected. You look at people who've been in jail, like Nelson Mandela, for 20 odd years and was never once a prisoner. He said, I was never a prisoner. So they can lock me up, but they couldn't take away my freedom. So it was like, oh, what do you mean it's all, I'm the one doing it? It's like, oh, because I thought I had to go out there and find the solutions. And it was like, no. But it's not prescriptive. It doesn't say do anything. It doesn't say, understand this and, your life will get better. It doesn't say, this is how all humans operate and be thinking positive or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. It doesn't say anything about that. It's just, this is the way we all create our version of the experience. And if you're not alive, you don't have a reality. If you don't have a thought, you don't have a version of reality. So you have to have a thought about something for it to be in your experience. And if that thought isn't made conscious, you don't have it in your experience. You probably got also, I do workshops where they go, it's like, oh, what about subconscious thought? It's like, well, if I'm not aware of it, it's not in my experience. So what's that got to do with anything? It's like, I can have a thought about stuff that isn't even real. And I make it real in my head. Basically, the whole world is happening in my head. Unless I have a thought about it, it doesn't exist for me. And that was mind-blowing for me because it was like, oh, wait a minute, it's all my fault. Oh, that's a bit of a game changer. Okay. And then as a result of seeing that that's how the system worked, I started to reconnect to what was already there. I started to reconnect to my own wisdom and my own intuition and my own guidance. It's like you look at kids, they're just so connected, ceaselessly buffeted by joy and sorrow, as Sam Harris says in Waking Up. Right? They'll cry and they'll scream, and the next minute they'll be, oh, ice cream. And this is, they don't ruminate on life. They don't think about stuff. They're in the present moment. And that's what it reconnected me to. Now, I had like really bad OCD. I was like, all over the shop. And I had, it was the symptoms of my thinking were everywhere. It was like, oh God, stress, anxiety, OCD, depression. Seeing that I was the one creating that was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not fair. Oh. David's got to go. Okay. So that was a game changer for me. That was an absolute game changer for me. And I remember walking out, I used to have this OCD where I'd turn the light switch on and off 7, 8 or 13 times because I thought if I didn't do it, my family would die. And I remember walking out of a room once and not doing it and going, oh, I don't have to believe my thinking anymore. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And, having done the psychotherapy and the CBT and none of it worked, it was managing your thought. It was like, it was talking about managing something that didn't need managing, as opposed to, oh, it's just thought. It's like looking out the window, looking at it raining and going, I don't like the rain, I don't like the rain, I don't like the rain, I don't like the rain. Well, you can't do anything about the rain. If you just let it do its thing, it'll be sunny again soon. And this is really it. That's to me, that's what the principles just talks. It's talking about how the operating system is working. And you don't have to do anything with it. So I wrote a book called Do Nothing, and it's like, oh, You're already connected. You're already connected to wisdom. You're already connected to insight. You're already connected to those moments. It doesn't matter what pain you're going through. As Sue said, it's like, you know, you can complain or you can dance. It is not prescriptive. So do you want to just give your kind of take on what it means to you?
Well, yeah, and it's, you know, and sometimes I can look back and realize that I haven't gone skiing in, I don't know, 40 years because I broke my ankle wearing roller skating, wearing boots, right where the boot ends. And I have not put a boot on to go skiing or roller skate or any of that stuff ever since. And I can look at that and I can turn it into something I can beat myself up over. Or I can look at that reality and the way I have decided to take care of my body and take care of myself and let it be an invitation. I can invite myself to go skiing anyway, or I can invite myself to find another way to get that joy and freedom of movement in my body and not feel like I'm missing out on anything. And that's really about just how attached I am to that can of napalm. That for me is the key to my 3 principles unfolding, is how am I going to make it worse with my thinking about my thinking about my thinking. And I've spent many years in my life creating conflagrations, creating forest fires, when it's really not necessary. I mean, necessary isn't even in the equation. It's just not helpful. It's not helpful. What's helpful? How can I be at peace, and how can I be most helpful in my life and be of service in the way I want to be and enjoy my life and feel fulfilled and inspired and inspiring? Maybe by not creating a whole sense of investment around what is and my circumstances. I get to look at that through my physical body, the manifestation of health and ease and pain in my body. I get to look at that with my relationship to my finances. I get to look at that with my relationship to my family and loved ones, to being single. I mean, there's just so many juicy opportunities for me to pile on thinking on top of thinking and make myself miserable. And the 3 principles for me has been a way to just really settle down. There are a couple of images that I hear a lot in the 3 principles world. And one is standing in a beautiful, clear stream and looking down and only seeing mud, because I'm kicking so hard with my feet that I am stirring up all this mud because this has gone wrong and this isn't working right, and I'm in pain, and I can't afford, and whatever. I have, believe me, we all have a ton of this shit. And if I just settle down, the mud clears. And the next time I look down, I am standing in crystal clear water, and under my feet are these beautiful river rocks. And the other one, that's the same story in a different way, is the snow globe. If I have this beautiful snow globe and I'm picking it up and shaking it and shaking it and shaking it, all I can see is the swirling snow. That's my thoughts. That's my thinking. When I put the fucking thing down, the snow settles and I can see the beautiful miniature landscape in the snow globe. That's me. That's my hand on my thinking. That's me throttling the flow of life and, stomping my feet and saying, this is unacceptable, God damn it, in the swirling mud. Now I'm mixing them two together, in the swirling mud and misery.
Yeah, there's something of a cosmic joke when, we realize that we're actually doing it to ourselves. It's like, oh, really? I'm doing it to myself.
Mhm.
You know, that's like you got like a really bad headache and you go to the doctors, and like the doctor says, "Oh, you just take a seat," and you say, "Doctor, I've got this really, really, really bad headache, and I just can't get rid of it." And all the doctor sees is like you hitting yourself with this frying pan. Doing, doing, doing. Can you suggest what might be wrong? Why I might be getting this headache? Doing. Yeah. All the doctor needs to do is go, do you know that you're hitting yourself on the head with a frying pan? Doing. Now, if you see that you're doing that, you don't need techniques for like hitting yourself on the frying pan with a frying pan technique. Like, if I did it to the side a bit, doing, it wouldn't be so bad, you know. No, you stop doing it. So that was, to me, it was like, oh, I'm doing it to myself. I'm making this shit up. It's like, oh, I don't have to believe my thinking. Well, that's kind of cool.
That's right. And yeah, and if you like, when we send out the follow-up email, I can tell you my favorite 2 introductory books to the 3 principles, and Damien can put on his favorite 2, and then you can pick. Damien, your video froze. Oh, there you are.
I did it. Yeah. It's not that you see that and you see that every thought is illusion, because you don't, because the process is it's supposed to look really, really, really real. But on the occasions when you remember, it's really helpful. It's like, oh, I don't have to believe this. That's really useful.
Or I don't have to think it. Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to think it.
I don't have to think
you know,
that.
you don't get to choose the thoughts in your head, but you get to choose what to do with them. That's the point.
Yeah, you know, I listening to the 2 of you, it reminds me of that spiritual principle, which is what we resist persists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to go back and check with you, Damien. Did you say that your OCD disappeared because you stopped thinking those thoughts?
No, I have OCD every single day.
Okay. You're freezing intermittently.
Around if you feed them. No, is it? Yeah, it's my wife I get crap about this time of day. Yeah, I said it's like the in-laws. They only stick around if you feed them.
Oh. Yeah.
I haven't had in-laws in a long time, but I love that.
So I just don't entertain them anymore. Just like, yeah, whatever. Not them again.
Or don't believe everything you think. Yeah.
That's it. You know, they're pretty compelling sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they feel really real, but it's just like, oh, it's them again. Bloody in-laws.
There's a 3 principles guy, Jamie Smart, and he has a couple of books, and he has this equation he repeats over and over and over and over and over again in the book, and I still couldn't remember it for a very long time, and that is clarity equals capacity minus contamination. So when I can put my contaminated thinking to the side, then my capacity, whatever it might be, whatever my capacity might be, I'm not going to the mountains to go skiing, but I'm going dancing. Whatever my capacity might be is what I get. It's my gift. It's that thing about, I heard all my best stuff in 12-step meetings. Well, most of it. If we all put our problems in the middle of this table, this imaginary table, I promise you we would all pick our own problems up on our way out the door. Because what's on my plate is a jewel. It's a jewel through which I am offered the ability to transform. What's on your plate is your gift. We are all given a plate. We are all given a plate. Those are our circumstances. It's ever changing. It's sometimes more grim than others, sometimes easier than others, but it's a gift. And if I am not spending my time kicking up the mud and pissing all over it, then I can actually see clearly what it is for me to do now, what's available for me to do now. That could be helpful to me and eventually helpful to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was nice. That there's a few people that didn't know about the principles, because it's a nice introduction for you guys as well. So just kind of point in this direction. I do a lot of courses on the principles, and to me, it's about listening. It's all about listening. I call it deep listening, but it's about listening to yourself. It's about listening to the universe, and the next message is always right where you are. You don't need to go looking for it. It's being delivered.
Yeah, they say that, if you're not busy pitching a fit about your thinking, then fresh thought is available. Fresh thought is available. And I'm noticing that to be true. The less I struggle, the more gentle inspiration is present.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for everyone for taking part. And it's really a pleasure to kind of point you in this direction. And Sue and I are going to go and we're going to go and scheme. Obviously, we're going to go and scheme. I don't know about what that. We're going to scheme about something. Because I love Sue. I think she's great, and she's a wise woman, aren't you, Sue? You're a wise woman.
Oh yeah.
I think you're a real gift, and I want to get you out there as a gift to more people.
Right on. So I think maybe what you might see next is that we may do another one of these free calls and see, just mind meld with, maybe you guys will come back and maybe some new people, and then who knows what we'll offer. But I think that there's
a Facebook group, though. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Stay tuned. And thank you very much for your time today as well. And we'll be sending the recording to everyone as well. So
thank you.
Thanks.
And how do we learn more about the 3 principles?
Well, we're going to send out an email to everybody who signed up for the call, and I'll put we'll collaborate, and I have a couple of books that I think are great entrees into the 3 Ps, and I'm sure Damien has his favorites. And we'll give you that, as well as Dr. Cowan, and Damien had another resource for Terry, or for something. So we'll compile all that and get it out to you. And if you aren't on my mailing list already, you will be added to it. I hope you stick around. Hopefully you'll find it a useful thing, and if not, you know what to do. We're all grown up. Click that unsubscribe button or throw me in spam. My feelings will not be hurt. Actually, if you unsubscribe, you get a love note from me. This is what I do. I send a love note saying, I'm so sorry to see you go. You're welcome to come back anytime. But for now, congratulations on claiming sovereignty over your inbox. So that's what I said.
That's brilliant.
I do it to make myself feel better. The subscriber, it works. I trick myself a lot into smiling because I don't tend to wake up that way. Although more and more I do. Yay.
Good.
All right. Thank you, lovely people. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Sue.
Thank you for putting it out there, Sue. I appreciate it. All right. Cheers.
Bye, all.
Thank you.